All right. It is 11:02, so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining, and welcome to our third webinar here covering Comeet best practices and reporting. If you've been with us through this journey, you will know that my name is Beth, and I'm here with my wonderful colleague, Orly. If you're first timer here, I'm Beth and this is Orly, and we'll be taking you through this webinar today. So we are part of the customer success team, and ultimately our job is to help you use Comeet and make sure that our partnership is wonderful and successful. So in our previous webinars, we laid the foundation and really taught you or took you through how to properly document your processes so that ultimately your reports are accurate, which obviously is very important when it comes to recruiting. So if you were unable to attend those webinars, we did record them. So, we really encourage you to go back and watch them. We do have them available, so hit us up if you want us to send it to you. They're also on our website, comeet.co or comeet.com. We will also be sending a recording of this webinar in our follow-up email that will go out tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, but prior to that, I'm going to actually turn off my video here so my face isn't throughout the whole entire recording, so we can properly share this without distracting anyone with our hand movements and facial expressions and all the fun stuff. Alrighty. So as we discussed in our previous webinar, this past year, we really honed in on development efforts that were dedicated to reporting. So we added and improved a good deal of our reports to help you understand, how much work you're putting into your processes and kind of where you can improve to make sure that that data is accurate. So this week's focus is going to be on those reports, and then we'll have next week's webinar that will be as well. So for expectations, this webinar will be about a half an hour long. We will leave time for questions at the end. So we definitely encourage you to ask questions in the chat throughout the webinar. That'll be at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll try to answer as many of those as possible. So for anyone that can't stay into the end, we really hope you do, or you really just want to share this content with your colleagues, like I said earlier, it is being recorded, so we will share this with you in our follow-up email. So before we get started with the actual training, I'm going to pass this to Orly, who's going to discuss today's agenda and talk about some new features that were recently released.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So today's agenda will first of all to go over a couple of new and noteworthy features that we released, as we've done in the past couple of webinars. In each webinar, we're going to be focusing on 2 new features. In addition, we'll talk about some of the reports. In the previous webinars, we talked about how you're ready for your report, make sure the data is formatted correctly. And then this time, we're actually going to get into the reporting inside of Comeet. So we'll go over the positions overview report and the activity report, as well as the past candidate funnel. And at the end, we'll be leaving time for questions and answers. Now, as always, you can feel free to start your questions right now, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end of the webinar, so keep them coming. New and noteworthy. As we discussed in our previous webinars, there's a page in Comeet called What's New that you can access by clicking the question mark on the top right-hand corner of your screen. We always have information about the new features that we've released. We also send individual messages inside of the application and to your email. Sometimes we don't really get to all of our emails, so this is a great one-stop shop to see all of what's new in Comeet. And there are a couple of bigger features. They're open to our ultimate and enterprise customers. The first of them is offer approval and signing. Entire approval process in Comeet. You set up chains of approvals that you can assign to different positions. Generate the offer, which can be either an offer letter or a contract in Comeet. Send it through the approval chain. The great thing is that the approvers don't even need to log into Comeet to approve things. They'll get all of the information to their email. They set their email to do their approvals. And then you can send the offers for e-signing to the candidates. and companies as well. So you can actually time the process from approval to signing at a Comeet. A really good way to manage things. The e-sign can be done as well. If you don't have access to some more, you reach out in the chat for a demo. If you have access and aren't using it yet, you should be. So get in touch with us and we're happy to set up. Next, we also have similar to what you can do with your offers, you can also set up an approval process for your openings. You can set up multiple approval processes or using different situations. And again, the approvers can approve, reject, or comment directly from their inbox. And of course, you'll be able to track their approvals in your reports in Excel. If you want to learn some more about, definitely reach out in the chat. And if you have it and you want a training, we're happy to set that up for you too. Now, I'm going to pass you over to Beth, who's going to talk about the reports.
Great. Thanks, Arlie. So, you know, the common theme we've been discussing throughout all of our webinars is how to get this really great, accurate data and track your KPIs. So we're going to talk right now about where you're going to find those KPIs and how to read them. KPIs being key performance indicators. So to access your reports, you want to go to the upper right-hand corner of your Comeet account to your command center here. So either click on your photo or your company name. Then we're just going to scroll down here to reports. On the left-hand side here under positions, we're going to go ahead and look at our overview reports. So the first thing I want to point out within the overview, positions overview reports is this filter up at the top here. So you want to make sure that these filters are set to retrieve the data that you're looking for. So oftentimes we, have our clients coming in with questions saying, this number doesn't match this number. It's not, making total sense. And typically the answer to those questions is, how is your filter set up? So we'll take a look at a few of the different options here so you know what's available to you. Number one, we have our time period here. So it's currently set to July 2020. But if I click here, I can customize it by month, quarter, year, can totally customize it by day, week, weekend, whatever your heart desires. And you can do it by all times as well. Today I'm going to go ahead and do it by quarter. And if I want to change quarter, you'll notice that there's a little arrow here directly next to the time period filter. I'm going to go ahead and click back. We'll take a look at, let's see, Q3 2019. That seems like a good one. You also have the ability to filter by department, location, position, and position status. Now, one thing I do want to point out about position status is that when you open up these reports, the status is always going to be marked as open, as opposed to also closed and on hold. The reason being that if we have all of these statuses or all of these statuses selected, it might take a little bit longer for the reports to download. And ultimately, if you're just looking for open positions, we'll have that here and ready for you. But again, if you want to choose both or all of these different position statuses, you do have the ability to do so. You can also add filters here if you would like. So we have department, location, position, and status set up here, but you can add additional ones here as well. And if at any point you want to start over from scratch, you can go ahead and clear your filters here. So there's two different sections of this report we're going to take a look at. The first one being the KPIs up here at the top. So we can see in Q3 of 2019, we had 30 openings. We had 12 open at the end of Q3 2019. We closed 17 openings, and we had one hire within that time period. Directly beneath here, we can see our average time to hire, which would have been 41 days here. Our average apply to hire, which would be 27 days. And then we also have time to onboard. Now, time to onboard is kind of like a clock from the day you open the position to the first start date of that candidate. On the right-hand side here, you can see your openings over time if you would like. So it's going to be from when you've started Comeet here to today. You can see how many positions were closed, how many openings were closed, open, and how many candidates were hired. You can also filter this by positions over time. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this at openings over time. Now scrolling down, we're gonna take a look at the second half here of our reports. And this is going to be a breakdown of the different data that you can take a look at when you're looking at your overview. So we did break it down in 4 different categories. So our KPIs, candidates, activity by step, and activity by type. So we'll take a look at all of these so you can, get a general understanding as to how to read them in your own account. So our KPIs here are going to break down each position and kind of the status or, where candidates are within this process. So for example, if we're looking at project manager here, we can see the department this position is assigned to, as well as their location. You can see their hiring manager as well as their lead recruiter. We can also see that this position has been open for 386 days. So keep in mind when you're looking at status and it says open and that time period beneath that, that is actually calculating your position, not your openings. Directly beneath that, we can see that currently we don't have any openings assigned to this position. However, we do have 2 closed openings assigned to this position. I'm just going to jump down here to product manager, which is the 3rd position here, so we can take a look at a little bit more data. So for example, product manager has 4 openings currently assigned to this position, and we have 2 closed openings. We can see that 11 candidates have applied here, and if I hover my mouse over that number, it'll show us the different candidates. We can see that 1 candidate was hired for this position, and again, if I hover my mouse over that, it'll show me who it is. I can also go directly to this candidate's card if I would like. For this candidate, I can see that the time to hire was 41 days, and the apply to hire was 26 days. Now, if you want a full breakdown of your different hires, we do have a hires report over here on the left under overview. But again, this is just going to give you an overview of all of that data. Now, moving back up to our tabs here, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to candidates. So here we can see how many candidates were considered for each position. We'll also be able to see their status here. So looking back again at product manager, we can see 11 applied. We had 8 that were rejected and 1 that was hired. Typically, if you see something along the lines of, 11 applied, 8 are rejected, and 1 was hired, that only equals 9. Typically, that's going to mean that this was a duplicate candidate, and they're probably added to a different position over time. Now, taking a look at activity by step here, we can see the progress by step of the candidates in the workflow. So for example, if we take a look at product manager here again, we can see that 11 applied, 10 completed the CV screen recruiter step, 9 passed, 1 was rejected. We can see 9 completed the phone interview step, 8 passed, 11 were rejected. And again, you can toggle through these different tabs to see the information. And then if I scroll over here just a bit, and I apologize, my system is going very slow, so it's like watching molasses go down a mountain. We can see that we have an on-site interview of 8 candidates completed, and all of them passed. So this is just going to, again, be a great overview as to what's taking place right now for the different positions and these candidates. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on activity by type. Now this is going to be a similar report that we looked at by step, except it's going to give you the step type as opposed to the step name. So looking at product manager, we have the 11 applied, 10 completed a go, no go, 17 completed a phone interview step, Again, you can see their recommendations here on the right-hand side. We can also see that 4 were rejected. And we can see that 16 here completed an in-person interview. All of them were passed with a strong recommendation. And then ultimately we can see our hired candidate here at the end. And again, you can click through to that information if you would like. However, the hires report, again, will be a really great source to find that information. So the reports that we have at the bottom here, as of right now, they're not exportable, so you don't have the ability to download them. However, that is something that my team is working on, and once that's been completed, we'll let you know. But we really do think that this is a really great piece of data to either download and have for your own records or to share with your team. So once that's ready, we'll definitely let you know. Alrighty, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to Orly to review activity reports with you.
Thank you, Beth. That was very informative. I really like this new overhauled overview as well. So hopefully everyone is familiar with it, and if you will not be using it. The next report we're going to talk about is the activity. I've actually prepared it in another tab. Where is it? All right, this did not work as planned. Sorry, guys.
Technology.
Here we go. So the activity report is one of the reports. It's the best place to look if you want to see the scope of your recruiting and to kind of help models understand things about your processes. This is the best place to look if you want to kind of do a deep dive into the workflow in your positions. It contains information about all of your candidates, both active and past. And to get the most out of this report, we generally suggest looking at a specific position or several positions with very similar workflows. Here, because that is usually our recommendation, because if the workflows are too different from each other, you won't really be able to kind of generate a really clean funnel here. Now, one of the reasons that we added recruiting stages to Comeet as part of our step templates feature that we just came out with is also to help you be able to so let's talk about what this activity really looks like. What I can see here in this report is how many tasks were completed. The time filter in this report is the time of completion of the tasks. And for each of these tasks, for each workflow, how many tasks were completed, how many passed and failed each one of these tasks, or the pass-through rate. And I can also see candidates withdrew or were placed on hold at any stage in the process. Now, take a look, first of all, at, let's say, the phone interview line here. First of all, if I don't want to click into one of these rows, I have this great tool here. There's an overall CP. How many were added to this step? This means likely that they were moved from other positions and ended up in this one. How many were removed from this step, which means probably that they were either duplicates or that they moved positions. And then I can see the pass-through rate as well. If I click on one of these steps, I can really do a deep dive and understand what happened in it. So for example, with this phone interview, I can see that 82 people reached the step. Out of them, there are 55 that passed, 9 were rejected, which is a pretty high pass-through rate. 4 here withdrew. 11 are still waiting for me to get the step and be replaced. I can also see that 55 people passed this step after merging for duplicates. If I click on the candidates that reached this step, I also have a lot of great information about why this number of candidates reached a step. We've actually overhauled these reports pretty recently, and the things added with this. It can really clear for you if there are candidates that seem to be missing between the steps, where they went. So either they were moved between positions, or I can click on this remove from step line and see exactly some were duplicates, some positions, Some of them I might have cut their workflow and remove the workflow. And I will add as well one of the changes here on the screen is we now allow you to show custom candidate steps. So whereas once you unlocked a candidate's workflow or steps, we wouldn't display him anymore in this report. Display the candidates are not here at the top of the screen. If I click on the number of candidates that were rejected, for example, I also get a breakdown of the rejection reasons. For each one of these steps, I can always see who the candidates are. And in these reports, the candidate names are also links to their candidate cards. So if I want to kind of take a look into things and understand what happened, I can also click on the candidate name. So again, this is a great place to do that kind of deep dive into each of the steps and get a lot of insights about your recruiting process. Another thing that you can see in this report that we haven't talked about yet is the time to complete, which is another great way to see if there are bottlenecks. So for example, the CV screen recruiter here took on average 14 days. There's only there. And in this report, what I actually see is this table here. Now, things that you can understand from the report. You can draw conclusions and make improvements in your process. For example, let's say in the CV screen by the recruiter, the pass-through rate is really high. That's actually true here. And there's a CV screen manager, and there the pass-through rate is very low. I could draw the conclusion there that maybe as a recruiter, I should be screening out more applicants in my stage and not leaving so much to be screened by the manager. Another example of where this could be useful is by taking a look at, let's say, withdrawn candidates. If I have a lot of candidates withdrawing in the middle of the process and I see that their withdrawal then is that they accepted another offer, then maybe I'm not getting to those candidates fast enough. If I'm seeing that I'm screening and rejecting tons of candidates in the CV screen recruiter and the CV screen manager, then maybe I need to take a look at my sources to make sure that good candidates or maybe the job description is not accurate enough and to have candidates applying for the position. So this is a place to play around, look at the data, look at the withdrawn and rejected candidates, and try to understand where we can make our improvements. The next report we're going to take a look at is called the Past Candidates Funnel. Now, it's called the Past Candidates Funnel, first of all, because this is a report that only has this means that either withdrew, were rejected, or were hired. If candidates are in process, they won't be shown in this report. So what is this report really great for? It's for if, let's say, you want to open a position that you had open in the past, and you want to kind of understand what the scope of work was, how many candidates you need in order to have one hire. So what you can do is filter by that previous position, which is now closed, and for both of these reports, by the way, and especially the activity report, the recommendation is to use the time frame of all times. In the activity report, the time frame is the step completion date, which let's say for the month, or let's say for the I have a candidate that went through a C screen and the funnel or time actual, instead of looking at when steps were completed, we're looking at when candidates were added into Comeet. So it's something to keep an eye on. It's another reason why it's best to look at the position. Now here, just like the activity report, you can kind of click through on each one of these rows to understand what happened, see the decisions that were made, who the applicants were. I can see who was rejected, why, and like the activity, all of these can also be. So, to sum things up about these two reports, they're similar but different. The activity report is to look when positions that you have open now. If I want to see my current recruiting activity, I should look in the activity because it will show things that are currently happening. Candidates will only show me activity for candidates that are no longer relevant to me. if I want to reopen an old position and kind of have a really great funnel view of what happened the first time around, the best place to look is the that. I'm going to pass you back over to that. Kind of sum things up, and then we're going to move into our Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Orly. So overall, just to kind of summarize, the past few weeks and today, previously we learned in our webinars how to document your activity correctly, set up your workflows properly, your job descriptions, as well as really utilizing those openings where most of your KPIs live. And then today we were able to see the reports and how it actually reflects that work, and all of the information you're setting up within your positions. So just for an overview, we talked about our positions overview, which is going to contain your central KPIs for all of the positions and the recruiting status. We talked about our activity reports, which is going to allow you to draw conclusions from the workflows of the positions, the stages in the process, and how you can make improvements. And then our past funnels report, which is going to give you information on past candidates. In our next webinar, we're actually going to talk about reports again, but this time we're going to show you a BI tool that we recently added. It's really enables us to increase our portfolio or the reports actually that are available to you. They also contain dashboards, which we have created to give you really great insights about your recruiting and processes. So we're very excited to show you that. So we're just going to go ahead and open up to questions here. So I can start my video again so we can say hi and greet each other at the end here. So let's see. We have questions. All right, I do have one here about looking at the overview. The time to hire numbers don't look accurate and the dates are off. So how would you fix those? That's a great question. So Orly, if you actually want to take me back to the Comeet page, then I will give a live demo as to where you can fix some of that information. So ultimately, time to hire is going to come from your openings. So what you'd want to do is go back to your main page of Comeet. So if you're looking at this project manager position and a hire that you made and the numbers don't look accurate, you want to make sure you go to your openings tab here. And then when you scroll down, you will see the openings that have a hire to it, or associated with it, I should say. And then within the opening, you can actually make some of those edits to reflect the appropriate time, the time of the opening, as well as the hire date and the applied date. So you would do so. If you wanted to change the applied date, you would just click within the time here. And we can see this date was added manually, but we can pick another date. We can also change the hire date by clicking in that time field and changing it here. If you want to edit any of the actual, and I did that kind of fast, so I'll go back to show you. But if you want to edit any of the actual opening data, you would click on, let's say, open date here, which will take you to the edit field of this specific opening. So you just click edit, and then once you do, you'll have the ability to change your open date retroactively, as well as your expected hire if you want, all of that to kind of match up a little bit better. And then obviously anytime you make any changes, you want to save it. But for now, I'm just going to click out of there, not save anything, and skew any of the data that we have in here. All righty, let's see. Can I filter the activity by a specific source? You actually can. So I'm just going to navigate back over to our report. So upper right-hand corner of Comeet, down to reports. We'll go over to the left under workflow and click on activity. And then within our filter bar here, I'm going to go ahead and click add filter. Drop it down to source. So you can do it specifically by a source name or by a source type. So if you want to look at like all agencies, you can do source type and filter by agency. But if you actually want to do it, let's click out of here. By source name, you would click source and then choose the specific source that you want to run the report on. Anything else?
See that we have another question that actually has to do with sources. Where can I find all of the information about my sources? It's a great question. We didn't really get into the sources review report in detail, but it's definitely an important one for you to know. This report here has all of the information about your sources. You can choose your filters up at the top in terms of time frame, if you want to filter in specific positions or locations or departments. And like this. And then you can actually see the performance of each one of your source types, as well as your individual sources. So if I want to see the quality of candidates that agencies are sending me, you can see for each one of these agencies how many candidates they submitted in the time frame, what percentage of them passed at least one season, and how many hires I had from each one of them, and the status of the current candidates. You can also change from this report. You can edit sources from here. You can also merge sources from here. So it's the best place to look if you want to see all the sources you have set up in Comeet and kind of make improvements as well. See if we have any more questions. I think that's about it for today. You see anything else, Beth?
Nope, I think we're good. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Again, we really appreciate your time, and if you've been with us through this journey, thank you so much. If this is your first one, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we see you next week when we talk about our new insights reports, which are amazing. If you ever have questions, definitely let us know. We're here to help. We're here to make sure our partnership is the best it can be. We love working with you all, so never hesitate to reach out. So thank you very much. Have a great day or night, depending on where you are right now in the world. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.